I still remember how hard my heart was pounding the first time I stepped inside Veronica Adams's office. I was 25 then, fresh out of grad school, clutching a new portfolio, and terrified of saying the wrong thing. Working for one of the city's biggest event planning agencies had been my dream, and Veronica Adams was practically a legend. Everyone in the industry knew her name. She had the loudest laugh in any room, the kind that made people turn their heads, and a voice sharp enough to slice through excuses. Clients adored her confidence. Employees feared it. She was the kind of woman who could win over a skeptical CEO with a wink, that leave interns trembling with one raised brow. On my first day, I wore my best navy blazer, the one I'd ironed 3 times that morning, and shoes that pinched just enough to remind me not to slouch. My mother had once said I had a shy smile, so I'd practiced a bolder one in the mirror. Before leaving home, trying to look like someone who belonged in Veronica's orbit. Inside, though, I was still that awkward girl who over-explained in group projects and apologized when someone else bumped into her. But despite the nerves, there was a spark of excitement fluttering in my chest. This was supposed to be it. My chance to turn what I loved into a career. Event planning had always felt magical to me. Transforming empty spaces into something breathtaking. Orchestrating moments that made people gasp, cry, or laugh together. I loved it all. The color palettes, the floral designs, the way light could turn an ordinary room into a memory. When Veronica offered me the job, she glanced at my thin portfolio and said, "We don't usually hire people without much real-world experience. But I like your eye." That portfolio was mostly my college projects, a few mock wedding designs, and a charity fundraiser I'd helped run. It wasn't impressive by industry standards, but I'd poured my whole heart into it. Veronica's smile that day was small and unreadable, just a flicker that said, "Don't make me regret this." I promised myself I wouldn't dot at first. The job was thrilling, chaotic, but alive. I stayed late learning vendor lists, memorizing budgets, and sketching layouts long after others had gone home. I fetched coffee, organized the supply closet, even labeled sample binders when no one asked me to. I didn't mind. It felt like paying my dues. I remember one night, sitting alone surrounded by color swatches and glittering centerpieces, feeling this quiet happiness, like maybe I'd finally found where I belonged. For a while, Veronica left me alone. She didn't shout, didn't compliment me either. Her feedback came in clipped phrases. Too plain. Needs more drama. Make it pop. Every frown felt like a test I was desperate to pass. She seemed to adore the louder ones, the bold voices, the talkative types like Lauren, our resident extrovert who could charm a client before coffee even arrived. Veronica laughed with them, praised their ideas, asked their opinions in meetings. With me, she was polite, distant, her smiles brittle as glass. She'd interrupt my suggestions or move on before I'd finished a sentence. I told myself I needed to try harder to fake confidence until I felt it, as my friends said. But confidence is difficult when your boss towers over you with crossed arms and a look that says, "You're lucky to be here at all, still." I kept hoping that if I worked hard enough, she'd see my worth. Months passed. I designed floral arrangements, built color palettes, and coordinated timelines until my fingers ached. Brides sent thank you notes with my name in them. Clients complimented my organization and patience. Yet when Veronica shared updates on our company's internal chat, my name never appeared. Every project was a team success, or worse, credited entirely to her. One day I asked, hesitantly, why she never mentioned me in her updates. She tilted her head and said, "You're talented, but too quiet. Speak up more if you want recognition." I remember that line word for word. Everything shifted during a massive corporate fundraiser for a major tech company, one of our biggest clients that year. Everyone had assignments, but I handled most of the decor, from sourcing linens to negotiating supplier discounts. I even saved the company hundreds on balloon installations. While setting up, I overheard Veronica chatting with the CFO, bragging about her negotiation skills. My stomach twisted, but I said nothing. I told myself it didn't matter who got credit as long as the event went perfectly. Still, a small voice whispered, "You deserve to be seen." The event was flawless. Glowing reviews, smiling clients, a full success. And yet, as the last guests left, Veronica walked over, expression cool, and pointed out a minor issue with the lighting. "This," she said, "is why you need to be bolder. You're too shy to command a room." A week later, at exactly 4:50 p.m., she called me into her office. I should have known. The blinds were open, the late sunlight spilling across her desk where a single piece of paper waited. She looked up, almost kindly. "We're moving in a new direction, one that values more extroverted energy. We need people who can wow clients on the spot. I'm sorry, but this is your last day." My throat tightened. "But my performance." "You're very talented," she cut in smoothly. "But clients want spark, confidence. It's not personal, just business." And that was it. No warning, no review. Just gone. I walked out carrying a small cardboard box, my coffee mug, a notebook, a few pens. My co-workers staring as I passed. Some looked guilty, others just curious. Lauren offered a pitying smile that made my stomach sink further. Outside, the building's glass facade reflected the fading sky. I stood there, jobless, humiliated, and completely unprepared. Rent was due in 2 weeks. My savings were thin, but more than fear, I felt something deeper. Smallness, the kind that seeps into your bones. All my quiet effort, my careful work erased. The next week blurred into a haze of exhaustion and disbelief. I stayed in bed for days, staring at the ceiling. My best friend Lily kept leaving messages. "Hey, you're amazing." She doesn't know what she lost. But I couldn't believe her. Then slowly something shifted. The sadness hardened into anger, not reckless rage, but a quiet, burning kind that refused to die out. She'd fired me for being too quiet, for not fitting her mold. Fine. Maybe I didn't need her mold. Maybe I could make my own. The idea of starting my own company began as a whisper, then grew louder every day I replayed Veronica's words. Too shy, not bold enough. At first, it sounded absurd. Me, the timid ex-employee running a rival agency. But I had the skills, the vendor network, the creativity. The only thing I lacked was belief. So I began anyway. My kitchen table became my office, my old laptop my command center. I reconnected with vendors, promising fair contracts, faster payment, and mutual respect. Some hesitated. Veronica had a reputation for blacklisting those who worked with competitors. But a few smiled and said, "Call me when you get your first gig." That first gig was a local art fair. Small budget, modest scope. But it was mine. I poured everything into it. Painted signs, flyers, volunteer schedules, lighting cues. I hammered nails myself and stayed up past midnight, making sure every booth looked perfect. When it ended, one of the artists told me, "You made this easy. Most planners just bark orders, but you actually listened." Another vendor laughed. "It's nice to work with someone calm for a change." That's when it hit me. My quiet nature wasn't a flaw. It was my strength. People trusted me because I listened. I made them feel heard. I built my website that night, naming my company Moonlight Events, a tribute to the kind of beauty that doesn't shout, but glows. Months went by filled with baby showers, birthdays, retirement parties, Small jobs that paid little but built my portfolio. Slowly, my phone began to ring more often. Then came the opportunity that changed everything. The Rosewood Gallery, one of the city's most prestigious art spaces, was hosting its 10th anniversary gala. Their regular planner had backed out. Word was that Veronica's firm demanded an outrageous fee. So they were looking for someone fresh, talented, but affordable. It felt like fate. Spent 3 days crafting my proposal. Detailed budgets, design boards, references, and testimonials. I hardly slept until the phone finally rang. "We'd love to give you a shot," said the gallery manager. I'll never forget walking into that space. The tall white walls, the gleaming floors, sunlight spilling through skylights onto priceless art. Celeste, the gallery's poised manager, greeted me with a confident smile. "We've heard good things," she said, shaking my hand warmly. And for the first time in a long time, I believed her. Around, imagining how I'd transform their space. Picturing floral arrangements, crisp lighting, a sophisticated color scheme that would complement their paintings. I felt alive with possibilities. Celeste's one concern was, "We want a refined touch, but also a bit of fun. Can you do that?" I assured her I could. And she smiled. "Great," she said. "We're counting on you." I threw myself into planning every detail, from smallest table accents to the background music. The more I worked, the more I realized I didn't miss Veronica's personality overshadowing me. I didn't miss the tension of not buying hard. Each day I got more confident in my own choices. Instead of second-guessing myself, I found solutions that felt right. And guess what? It turned out I was pretty good at dealing with clients, even if I did it in a quieter way. I built relationships based on respect and honest communication. Vendors liked working with me because I didn't bark orders. I asked politely yet firmly, and if something went wrong, I stayed calm and fixed it. The gala night arrived. I paced the gallery, making sure that champagne glasses sparkled, and the Livio's ensemble was comfortable in their corner. The art on the walls practically glowed under the perfect lighting I had arranged. Around 6 o'clock, guests in formal attire began drifting in, exclaiming how beautiful everything looked. Celeste gave me a thumbs up, her eyes shining with excitement. I couldn't help but remember the day I was fired. Veronica's sissy voice telling me I wasn't good now. Now here I was orchestrating accuracy event that was going off without a hitch. As the night wore on, Celestine trotted me to a bunch of high-profile attendees. Turns out many of them were in need of event planners for upcoming galas, charity balls, or product launches. Business cards traded hands. I did my best to appear poised and friendly, my heart thumping with excitement. One of them whispered, "You usually use Veronica Adams, but she's surpressed. This is quite impressive." Another chimed in, "Her staff can better she. You seem so much more agreeable." My chest swelled with a mix of satisfaction and righteous anger. It was happening. I was winning over Veronica's client base, not by brute force, but by offering genuine kindness and dependableness. By midnight, the gala was declared a raging success. Celeste was overjoyed. And me, I drove home with a satisfied smile stretching across my face. It felt like I'd won a secret battle. Over the following weeks, I got calls from at least 4 new clients who previously worked with Veronica. They asked if I had the capacity to handle their events. Suddenly, I had more business than I'd ever dreamed. I had towering on 2 assistants, an upgrade from a kitchen table to a small shared office space downtown. Every step was a thrill. I'd never been an adventurous once, but building my own company taught me that I could handle challenges. In a way, I discovered a side of myself that was braver than I thought. Then came the biggest twist of all. The city's Chamber of Commerce decided to host a massive trade expo in the main convention center, and the budget was rumored to be huge. All for top event planners submitted proposals sinking me, obviously. And of course Veronica. That old fear sprang up in Sadim. The memory of her condescending ease. But I also felt a fiery determination. I wanted this contract not just for money, but to show Veronica that being quiet didn't mean being weak. So I prepared an ambitious plan. Multiple themed sections, interactive booths, and a brilliant marketing strategy that used social media. I spent countless hours perfecting each page of my proposal, making sure it was easy to read, but packed with creative ideas. The day of the final pitch, I arrived at Chamber's sleek high-rise with a case of presentation boards and a calm expression I'd practiced in the mirror. Inside the meeting room, I caught sight of Veronica. She was all sharp angles and a confident grin, wearing a crimson power suit. My stomach fluttered. For a split second, I wanted to hide. Then I remembered how hard I'd worked, the success I'd already had, and the praise from my new clients. I walked to my designated seat without looking at her. But I felt her gaze, a flicker of recognition passing over her face. She wasn't used to seeing me in such a formal setting, looking every bit the professional. When it was my turn, I stood before a panel of city officials and introduced myself as the owner of Moonlight Events. I laid out my vision for the trade expo, how it would welcome local businesses, generate buzz on social media, and provide a delightful experience for visitors. I spoke calmly with a steady voice, making eye contact. I remembered my friend Lily saying, "Just speak from your heart." So that's what I did. I didn't try to be flashy or hyper-energetic. I just explained how I'd make it all happen step by step, and how important it was to treat exhibitors and guests with care. After I finished, I noticed Veronica watching me with a stony look. Arms folded, a swirl of emotions passed through Minga. Fear, pride, and a strange kind of triumph. Because no matter what happened next, I had faced her without flinching. My last thought before leaving that building was, I can do this. I can beat her. About a week later, my phone rang at 7:00 p.m. I nearly fumbled it in my haste to pick up. It was the Chambers' main contact telling me, "We loved your approach. Simple, people-friendly, and tech-savvy. The expo is yours if you'd like it." For a moment, I sat there in shock. I'd beaten Veronica. I'd won the biggest contract in town. I squealed, my voice echoing in my tiny office. The next morning, I found out Veronica was furious. She'd made snide remarks to mutual contacts, complaining that I'd stolen the contract by undercutting her. But, in reality, my bid was fair. I just didn't inflate my prices the way she did. The contract was so major that I finally had no money to lease a bigger space, a 2-story office with glass windows and a modern lobby. We had new employees too, a couple of designers and a logistics expert. I felt a rush of pride whenever I saw our new sign, Moonlight Events, displayed out front in bold letters. Some might think that was revenge enough, but I'll admit I wanted to do something more. Something that would show Veronica I was no longer the timid girl she fired. Maybe it was pity, but part of me needed that final victory, that last proof of my worth. A golden opportunity arose when the expo's promotional campaign suggested we rent billboard space around the city. The city official who hired me said, "The marketing budget is high. We can do large ads, bus wraps, social media videos, you name it." My mind went wild. I remembered that Veronica's office wasn't a busy street near the highway. There was a huge billboard right next to her building, visible from her windows. It was pricey for sure, but I had the budget now, and the city was fully backing me. So, I arranged it. I paid for a month-long billboard that would show the Chamber Expo details, the city's official logo, and most importantly, Moonlight Events as the official event planner. The design was sleek and professional, but the message wasn't mistle. My company was leading the biggest show of the season. The day they raised that billboard, I drove by, my heart pounding. There it was, towering in full color. Anyone who stepped out of Veronica's building or looked out her office window would see my company name in 10 FT letters. About a week later, he got word from a mutual acquaintance that Veronica was livid. She'd called an emergency staff meeting to brainstorm ways to compete, but the expo was sealed. My contract was locked in. Shekel didn't do anything about it. And every morning her entire staff would see that billboard overhead reminding them we took the biggest fish in the pond. Stefanel's sweetest moment came when he learned Veronica tried to snag a competing event scheduled at the summertime. The event organizer basically said, "We're going with another planner who's more in tune with our budget." That planner was one of my new hires I personally trained. Not long after, I bumped into Veronica at a cafe downtown. I had just finished a meeting with Celeste from the gallery, who was planning another big show soon. Veronica was sitting at a corner table, flipping through some paperwork. When she saw me, her face pinched. I remember the last time we'd locked eyes back in the day she fired me. This time, I was the one wearing the confident smile. She nodded, trying to act composed, but I saw her eyes flick with annoyance. I stepped over all polite. "Hi, Miss Adams," I said calmly. She gave me a stiff smile. "Hello," she replied, her voice cold. Then out of nowhere she said, "You puffed that billboard on purpose, didn't you?" I shrugged, my cheeks getting hot, but me smile never wavered. "It's just good marketing," I said, echoing the phrase he used to say to me whenever she took credit for my work. Nothing personal. Then I turned and left, my heart pounding with adrenaline. The look on her face was priceless, a mix of frustration and grudging respect. I heard rumors that some of her best clients were switching to smaller, more flexible firms because they were tired of her brash ways. Meanwhile, Moonlight events kept growing. By the time the expo finally opened, we had established Adorsivers as a real player in the city's event scene. It was a spectacular show with thousands of visitors each day. Our staff was all over the convention center, managing booth layouts, assisting vendors, handling last-minute snags with a calm efficiency I was proud of. On the second day, Celestine trotted me to a major investor looking to fund a chain of new art venues. I felt a thrill just imagining future projects we might handle. On the final evening of the expo, the city held a small wrap-up ceremony to thank sponsors and participants. I stood on stage in a modest but elegant black dress, accepting a plaque for outstanding event coordination. In that crowd, I noticed Veronica's new assistant, a young girl who couldn't